Hello there. I hope you're having a really awesome day and that when you saw this email pop in, something in you pulled you in to read it, to press play, and to be able to let yourself fully receive. I know sometimes we can ask a lot of questions, and I often think about it as like there's this bridge in between. When we ask a question or when we're really wanting support, we ask it, but we also have to stay open and open our heart to receive the answer. And sometimes that means sitting down and pressing play and listening. So, since you're in my inbox, you probably already know by now, I'm Amanda Evans. I was the host of the Highly Sensitive Child Summit, and I'm also really wanting to make sure that after that, you have everything you need. So, you've got the tools, you've got the reminders, and you have any next steps that are going to support you and your highly sensitive child, but mostly your family as a whole. So, I wanted to take the time to first say from my heart to yours, thank you. Thank you to everyone who checked the last email after the summit, who did the survey, and who shared your heart, your struggles, your fears, and the questions you still have with me. I know that, you know what, sometimes it can take some time, but your level of commitment to you and to having the support by taking the time to share that with me, it meant a lot. And I really wanted to come in here and answer some of those questions. So this is a little bit of a Q&A. Some of the questions really can be answered by a resource or one of them like by one of our talks. So I wanted to bring it back because I do not want to leave you with questions unanswered, and I do want to guide you to whatever your next step is to support you. So I'm just going to intuitively go into question answer mode. And I'm going to bring up the questions that were asked on the survey. And I also want to give you a future opportunity to be coached live and have more of your situational things that you can get support directly for your child, which might also help another parent who might not have asked the question out loud. So we will lead into that after, but we're going to start with question number 1, which, if right now you've been feeling all day like you have been like stressed and unable to have the time to do all the things you need and the time to slow down to be present with your child, we're just going to take a moment to tune in and start there, because the first question is really about time, actually, and morning routine and what happens with emotions. So I just want to give you a practice so we can really ground in. So I want you to take one hand, put it on your heart, take another hand and put it somewhere that might be feeling alert, stressed. Maybe it's depressed. Or maybe there's some hurt there. Maybe there's even some physical pain. I want you to put one hand on your heart and one hand wherever your body is needing it right now. We're going to send some love there, and we're going to just let ourselves ground into the power of the heart, because this is actually a tool that might help you with question number 1. And because if you're here, you either have a highly sensitive child or you're a highly sensitive person yourself, your heart is going to be more powerful than anything. And it's a really superpower tool to get back into how you want to feel and be able to hold space for your emotions, but also your kiddos. So put one hand on your heart, one hand somewhere. So example, if I was feeling I could put it on my stomach, or if I was having a headache or just feeling a lot of tension, I could also put it here. The back is your vagus nerve at the back of your neck too, which sometimes gets stimulated when you're feeling overwhelmed or stressed or overstimulated. So I'm just going to do it here just for an example. And you have 2 choices. You can either pause this video, put on your favorite song that brings you joy lately, and simply breathe in through your nose and a longer breath out through your mouth. And do that as long as the song is, because the song might be 2 to 3 minutes and that's all you need sometimes. But for ease, we're actually going to do 5 big, deep breaths. Now, I'm also going to bring back some of our awesome expert speakers and their tools, because Amanda Frederick, who was talking about breath work and really regulating yourself and that helping your child learn how to regulate too, was all about breath work. And she said, check in with your breath. How are you breathing? Are you breathing here, or are you breathing in your belly? So wherever your hands are, we're going to take a big breath in through your nose, a longer breath out through your mouth, but make sure we're breathing in through our belly and out. So So we're going to do like this. Breathe in and out. Breathe in, out. Breathe in for 3, out. For 4 breaths, breathe in and out. Breathe in for 5 and out. And as I do that, I'm also laughing at the mess of toys behind me that I didn't clean up for this. And you know what? This is where I always show up as an imperfectly perfect human. And I'm guaranteeing you might be able to relate to me because your kids' toys might be all over the place. And sometimes there's power in that happening and being able to feel fully calm and in your heart in the moment. So just put that out there in case you're feeling a little bit of compassion needed for that in your own house and home. And I want to start with the first question. So somebody who filled out the survey asked this. It was about time, is what to do when your child needs time. Maybe they need your time, but we don't have the time. So example, in the morning before school. So I can imagine that morning before school or morning before you go somewhere with your family and your kiddos might bring up challenges sometimes. I know I have a lot of parents who I coach who talk about like if their child has sensory stuff, them even getting dressed or putting snow pants on or putting that thing on that doesn't feel comfortable for them. That can create tension. That can create a challenge. So we want to simplify everything you're doing. So just like I showed you in an example there with that really quick breathing exercise, that's something that you can do that's going to simplify everything else. But when it comes to time, we want to be proactive. So I'm going to guess that your family has a morning routine of some kind. Really check in. Is it working for you? Does it need to be simplified? Or does it need some like life hacks to make your morning routine more supportive for you and your highly sensitive child? So I want to bring back in Kristen, the realized empath, and what she was talking about is some of her biggest keys were having a morning routine for herself. And rather than having that me time at the end of the day, really starting her day by filling herself up and filling her cup up, because she was actually more present to her children and what they needed after that. I know it's the same way for me. I start my day with a meditation, and then I do the quick thing where I put on some really good songs. I'm starting the day in a really high vibration, and then I'm able to be present to the needs and the emotions and the people around me because I've been present to my own. So I want to start there. We're going to be proactive, simplify, and then I'm going to give you some quick tools to really be able to allow for your child and their emotions or their feelings, while also having them know the expectations. So to be proactive, what can you do to start your day so you're not feeling as frazzled, as overwhelmed, as unable to have the capacity to hold space for your child and what they might be feeling? So tune in. What do you need in your morning routine? And then start small. Start small with that. If you're bringing in a change, do it every day for 5 days and see how it goes. And be gentle with yourself. When you're bringing in a change, maybe you're starting a meditation practice. Maybe you're starting with 5 minutes, then going to 10, then going to 20. Or maybe you're waking up a little bit earlier just to give yourself that free time for you so that you start your day feeling like you have more space and you're in a better mood. Start small and go from there. Start small, check in. How's this working? Am I noticing a difference? I also want you to really tune in. What do you need on the emotional level? Because are you feeling triggered by your child's big emotions? Or are you feeling overwhelmed and like there's way too much on your plate lately, so morning time is like a stress time for you? Are you feeling stressed by time? Because if you are, that's okay, but you get to start with you because your child is vibrationally picking up on what's going on around them. So if you're feeling stressed and frazzled and not having enough time, they're also going to pick up on that and feel that. So you get to check in with you first and be like, if this is how I'm feeling, what do I need so I don't feel as stretched or stressed out in the morning? And it could be something as simple as you starting with that hand on heart, hand on wherever else you feel it, and breathe in. And again. Or it could be you and your child having a dance party in the morning. That before the doing of the things that need to get you going, you do something connecting and playful and joyful that's going to up the way you feel, bring in your connection. Because when we feel connected, when we feel heard, when we feel seen, and when we're having fun, everything else is easier. I always say that I'm a master coach meets Mary Poppins, and I think about the scene in Mary Poppins where like a spoonful of sugar makes the medicine go down. I want you to think about that, because by bringing in play, by bringing in lightness, by connecting with the child in a fun, playful way, everything gets done much easier. And I can imagine that you might have a child who might be fighting with you and you're butting heads in the morning because you need to get everything done for your day and they need to get ready for their day. So it's a lot of things. So how can you bring more fun in is my tip. And what tools do you need? So we talked about in Jen Harrison's interview, which I loved how she talked about, we really just need to listen, because if your child's having big emotions and you actually truly listen and hear them and let them have it fully, they feel heard and it's complete. Chances are in the morning when you're trying to get your child ready for school, they feel rushed. And if you're not actually allowing for them to just simply express what they're expressing, they're going to feel that and it's actually going to keep getting bigger. So if in that moment you tune in, maybe even tell yourself, okay, I recognize that my child having big emotions right now. I'm feeling like there is no time for this because we have to get going. So they're going to feel that I feel like we don't have the time for this. Whereas if you even do that hand on heart, slow breaths, maybe you do it for yourself because you're realizing you're stressed, or maybe you do it in tandem together with your child. So you both get that reset. They might be like, I'm feeling sad, or I'm feeling this, and they might fully feel it. Because you slowed down enough to say, I'm right here. What are you feeling and what do you need? They can express it, fully allow it, then they'll feel heard, and then they don't have any resistance to getting out the door anymore. They really just want to know that you care and that you can be there with them through it. But if you cannot be there with yourself in the moment, they know and they sense and they feel that you cannot be there with them. So that would be my tip, is really simplify, know what tools you have in your toolbox so that if you're feeling frazzled, stressed, and stretched for time, you can get out of the lack mentality and the fear around time. You can get into your body, into your calm nervous system, and into the moment with your child so that you can listen and hold space. And also, clear expectations help children, especially sensitive children. They like to know sometimes what to expect. So if your morning routine is simplified and clear, like we do this and then we do that, then your child knows that that's the expectation. And if they're having big emotions around that, maybe later in the day you can create space to really get on their level, talk to them, like Ashley said, really just sit on your child's level, eye to eye, heart to heart, hear what's going on there. So that way you can build in what you need in the morning routine to make sure it's supportive for your child and for everyone. Now, we're going to move to question number 2. Question number 2 was actually, how do you read your human design chart? So this obviously is not my area of expertise, but I know a lot of people who are great with it. And Alexandra Cole actually created a PDF for us that really breaks down the how to read your human design chart. I would say if you're really interested in the human design chart, book a session with her or book a session with somebody. So I always feel like we're led to the people that we are meant to be supported by or have something to learn with. So if you want to look someone up or you want to go straight to using that discount and booking with Alexandra Cole, we'll leave that information below so you can do it. But you can also Google tons of things about human design and it will share with you. So if there's a part of your chart that you're like, oh, I notice I'm open in the Anya or your throat or whatever your chart is saying, then it will tell you what that means, whether it's open or whether it's closed. So I can give you a few tips, but this was in the talk. So if it's colored in, then you have a closed or defined spot. So whichever one it is. And if it's like white and it's not colored and filled in, then it's open. So I know personally that I've been able to Google like open throat or open spleen and learn more that way. To get a more in-depth understanding of it, it's always best to work with someone. So definitely check out the PDF from Alexandra Cole because she made it specifically for us. And if you want to go deeper, dive deeper, book in a session with her. That way you can understand both yours and your child's in tandem, which is awesome. Or find someone who feels aligned to you. So, number 3 is how can I calm my boys when they are overwhelmed and frustrated? So, I'm going to tune in there of what's going on there. So, I also want to talk about family dynamics because there could be things going on, like you said, your boys. There could be something going on with one child that's kind of triggering the other child too, and they might have different triggers of why they feel overwhelmed and frustrated. So we always want to get to the root of what is the behavior, what's showing up right now, but what's the root underneath it? So what's the need or the emotion that's being expressed underneath it? So we can only understand that through use your parents, mama's intuition, but also create the space for them to express and tell you more so that you can understand what's really going on for them. But we always start with you as the parent. So this is when it comes down to what are your feelings, emotions, and the needs underneath them lately? Because the more you can be in touch with that, the easier it is for your children to understand that because you've been modeling it yourself. Same goes for calming overwhelm and frustration. So I'm going to ask you, how are you feeling lately? When you're noticing that your boys are overwhelmed and frustrated, is that the main emotion, the main experience that you've been having lately? And this is where you bring a lot of compassion in, because when I ask that, it's quite likely that a lot of parents right now are feeling overwhelmed and frustrated. And what tools do you have so that you can breathe into the discomfort, the frustration, the fear, or the overwhelm that's coming up? Do you have a coach or someone who can hold space for your big emotions? Because something that I talk to a lot of parents about is when you, especially during the pandemic, when you are holding space for so much and so many people around you and their big emotions, you often need someone, something, or tools that are going to hold space for yours so that you have an expanded capacity and more compassion and acceptance from having the space for it to hold for other people's. But you also need the tools. So what do you do when you are feeling overwhelmed, stressed, frustrated, all of those things? Do you have a breathing practice? Do you have tools to release and feel fully your emotions? Or do you stuff them back down? Do you know how to move through the emotions that are coming up for you? Do you create the time and space for them? Because something that I know can be hard for parents is to actually have the time and space to fully allow their emotions to be held. But the thing is, if you're not creating the space for that, you're going to witness that coming out in your children, which means you might be more triggered when it's happening. So I would say first, look at what is your current emotional experience. Are you feeling the same way that you're seeing mirrored in your boys? 2, what do you need right now to make friends with your emotions, to fully heal, feel, and release them so that you can, number 3, model this to your boys. When you can model this to your boys, they're going to pick it up and they're going to learn, when I'm feeling this, I can do this. So when I'm feeling this, I can use that tool that my parent taught me. And they're also just going to start shifting in how they feel because the energy is going to shift in your home. Because if you are meeting your needs and your emotions, then your children, your boys won't feel that, but they also will understand how to meet and feel their own. Now, last thing there is there's something that like we transfer sometimes our emotions onto other people. So there might be something going on in terms of just energetic boundaries that like either one or more of your children are like taking on someone else's emotions in the house. And this is more just what I'm picking up on. So I want you to really tune in. What does my child need? And who in our home is having a hard time feeling their own emotions? Because this is where you're going to bring in the reminder that if someone is feeling emotions, that you celebrate that it's safe for everyone to feel. And for the child who might be taking on someone else's emotions, this is when you get to support them to know that, is this yours or is it not yours? Is this your feeling, or are you noticing you're feeling this way because mom, dad, sister, brother, whoever family member is feeling that way? Because that's an important thing to understand. And then you're going to support your child to know that, you know what, when the other person's feeling that, it's not about you. You don't have to feel it for them, but you can feel how you feel about that person's feeling. So if your son suddenly gets overwhelmed because he notices mom is overwhelmed, it's first realizing that, oh, as mom, I'm feeling overwhelmed. And I also now realize that my son tends to pick up and take on my emotions. So then you get to really slow down and sit down with your son and be like, how are you feeling about when I feel overwhelmed? Because you don't need to feel it for me, but I do want to help you so you can feel your emotions and you can get your needs met. And I also, it's right over there. I'm going to go get it. I also really love tools like I think it's Generation Mindful. Yeah. Generation Mindful has a feelings bingo, and I use it with my clients. And kids are really great at actually naming and understanding their emotions and then learning what tools they can feel it with. I recommend either getting a game like this or just making it a priority to start learning about drawing and even role-playing your emotions so that kids start to learn to have language to be like, this is angry. I'm feeling angry right now. This is what angry feels like in my body. This is what I can do when I feel angry. Or this is what I can do when I feel overwhelmed. So maybe it's like a 3, 2, 1, stop, drop, and play. Because play is the tool that I use for people to get back into their parasympathetic nervous system to really feel safe and slow it down. And also to connect, because from connection we can talk more, and that's when we really get underneath to the needs so we can do things differently next time. So maybe you stop, drop, and play, and you play a game of Uno when your child is feeling really overwhelmed and they don't know how to get back in their body. You play, you both get back in your body, then you talk about what can you do next time that feeling comes up? What does that feeling feel like? Because oftentimes when your child is in the experience, they can't quite get to their words yet. But when you do something that brings you into the body, the words come out. And you're able to have the vocabulary to talk about emotions. And then maybe it's like, what were you feeling before we played Uno? It might be like, I was feeling sad. Sad. And what are you feeling now after we stopped and paused and play? And it might be, now I'm feeling calm. So there's more we could do there. And if specifically as a parent, you're really resonating with this and wanting more strategies, I want you to know that you can also hit reply to this email, and I will give you a link so we can book in a 30-minute connection session and we can dive deep into your family and the family dynamics, see if there is a way of working together moving forward. Or if that's all it is, then give you some next steps, because I really think it's the time in the world where we all need support, and we need support that's going to help create the biggest shift and impact for ourselves and our family as a whole. And I want to leave you with the tools you need, but I know that sometimes the question I answered is going to help a lot of families because you all resonate and relate to a question that one person asked. Other times there might be more energetics, specifics, and tools that are going to be really supportive to your family and your highly sensitive child. So take what you take, leave what you leave, like I said at the beginning of the summit. And then number 4 I would love techniques for supporting myself as an HSP while supporting my highly sensitive child. So this is where I actually just want to bring, it's funny because it's backwards, where I want to bring back Kristen's interview, which Kristen, the realized empath. So And I'm going to answer something. I'm going to bring that interview back because she talked a lot about this. It's her being a highly sensitive person and rediscovering how her world and life needed to look to then support her highly sensitive child while she was going through that process. A lot of great things there. She really touched on compassion, finding out what her non-negotiables were. So really, what are the things that you need to thrive? What are the things that you need to honor your emotions and honor what you need in your space to feel your best? Are there some relationships? Are there some things like maybe your job that are draining you emotionally? Are there things that need to shift so that you can feel your best, so that you can thrive? Because if you start with you, it's going to help your child, and you're going to be modeling how to live in a beautiful way as a highly sensitive person. Now, high sensitivity is expressed differently in each person. So you might be highly sensitive in one way, but it might look and feel completely different for your child. And what I want to answer to this person is that it's really important not to project what your experience is onto your child. So first, seek to understand. What does it mean to be highly sensitive for you personally? Maybe you journal about this first. You start to find the awareness. You have a lot of compassion for the areas that feel like a challenge, but you also learn what your superpowers are in these sensitivities, because those are the things that you want to focus on more and find support to shift the areas of challenge. The same is going to go for your child. You want to spend that one-on-one time, and maybe it is through play, maybe it is through connection, understanding, what does being sensitive mean to my child? What are their superpowers with this? What are their gifts? Maybe that even means looking up your human design. Or maybe that just means having a conversation that gives your child a voice and then gives them choice of what they want their life to look like, or what they need to look and feel different, what activities support them, and what activities really don't allow them to feel their best. Then there's also the same thing. Look at the areas of challenge and then see what you can do to support them there. Because just like Alyssa was talking about, I believe the same thing. You're not just going to avoid everything because it feels uncomfortable and you're highly sensitive. You might actually see those as growth and healing opportunities, which are, sorry about the call coming in, which are going to allow your child to grow in their competence and confidence and feeling safe to be themselves in a new scenario or a new environment, while also really putting a focus on the strengths and the superpowers and building your child up. So there's way more we could dive into there, which is why I'm actually going to leave that there. But I have one last thing to say. When it comes to being highly sensitive and in a family where there's lots of highly sensitive people, what can happen is sometimes your energy and feelings ping pong off each other. And energetic boundaries are often needed then. And I know Alyssa talked about creating the bubble around you, and it's something I actually do in my own life. But something that one of my coaches really put the visual in my mind is if you feel like you're feeling someone else's energy or emotions, really create that safe cocoon around you, but also imagine the separation between you and the other person's emotions. So I often think, I use crystals a lot with clients. And this idea, and it's more the emotion behind it when it comes forward, which helps me. If I feel like I'm feeling or soaking up someone else's emotions, I actually envision they're their own crystal, they're in their own little bubble, and I'm in my own crystal and in my own little bubble. And I'm not actually creating anything around that person, but it's seeing the distance of we're no longer in the same bubble. I don't need to feel what they feel. They don't need to feel what I feel. I can witness them in their experience, but I don't have to feel it for them. Same goes for them. They can witness me in my experience, but they don't have to feel it for me. Because the superpower is really being able to empathize with another and have compassion for them. But we're not going to feel what they feel. And that could be going on for you and your child. So first, tune in. What do you feel? What do you need? Is someone feeling someone else's emotions? Because then we need to have some energetic boundaries. And Kristen was all about the boundary boot camp, I'm pretty sure, and she had tons of resources for that. So that's why I'm going to bring her back in here, because I think she's a great next step. But I also know that if you need more one-on-one specific coaching support, definitely sign up at the end of this email so that you can come to the Q&A coaching with me and get some more specific support for your particular family dynamic and your particular experience as a highly sensitive person, and how to support your highly sensitive child. We have 3 more questions, so I'm going to get straight into them. And I also know that some of these questions, I'm just going to bring you to a book or a resource that can expand upon it, because I might not be the resource for that question. But I really thought this one was interesting. So someone asked, although there was information about boys, a lot still seemed to focus on girls. So it's interesting. I didn't think about it this way, but I appreciate you pointing that out and it feeling like that, so we can make sure that your child gets the support that they need. But I also want to talk more about this. So it also said, would like additional info on adolescence and what if problems have developed, like addiction to electronics. So I'll do that one separately. One thing, with anything we talked about, something that's going to be supportive for one person might have nothing to do with another person. So that could even be to people who identify as girls or women. Whereas what this really is more about is the social construct and the dynamics around what feels acceptable in society of a specific gender. So what I want to talk about more about this is some of the tools or the stories or the shares that were shared, just because a woman might have shared the example or they might have been talking about their daughter, is it true that those same things, those techniques or those tools won't be transferable, supportive, and applicable to your son? Because that's the most important thing first, because they might be. Because all humans need support, all humans need love, and all humans need tools that are going to help to regulate. And all humans have emotions that need to be loved and heard and expressed and safe to be expressed. Now, with that topic in mind, I know that there's a lot of unlearning in us now, especially as parents parenting children, around things that we might have learned growing up. So one, I know a lot of girls socialized to feel like anger is not an okay emotion to feel, or to really like make themselves small to be accepted and not show their power or not show their big emotions, or feel like they need to be nice all the time. I know that's a thing, socialization for girls, which, especially if you are a girl and you're highly sensitive, you might be so in tune with what everyone else is feeling and thinking that being nice is almost like a mask or a part that you put on to keep yourself safe. So I wanted to speak to that. But I also know that a lot of the protective parts that we develop as children are to keep ourselves safe, to keep ourselves socially accepted by others. And that can come up a lot, especially if you have a highly sensitive child or were a highly sensitive child yourself. I know in my own experience, that was definitely a big thing, definitely not allowed to feel anger. Not because anyone specifically told me that, but it was just what I picked up from society and from school and from everything around me. But I also picked up the way that girls are mean in different ways than boys. Whereas boys, it might have been very like aggressive and like, I'm going to tell you what you did that made me mad. Whereas girls, it's like, well, I'm not going to show them I'm mad. And I might talk about you behind your back or be mean to you one moment, be nice to you the next. And I give these examples because there's a different experience. And there's a lot of kids who don't fit into either one of those categories, who don't identify as the gender of a girl or a boy. And that's a whole different experience too. So it really is specific to your child. However, looking at your child through the lens of what society and the way that society sees things and culture sees things and might stereotype genders, which has affected the experience of your child who's socialized a certain way. So in that case, there might also be, you might have a really sensitive boy who, because he's maybe seeing people around him who are portraying or expressing the message that boys are meant to be like macho, manly, not show certain emotions, definitely not be sad, but anger's okay. Feels like they need to be strong and that their sensitivity is not welcome. That is an issue that can happen. And if that is what you're talking about and wondering what more support can be there, I definitely want to send you in the right direction for some resources. But I also want to point out, who are the models to your son or your child? Is this an open conversation that you have in your family? Is, if there is a dad present in the family, is the dad open, loving, accepting of his own sensitivities as superpowers, so that the child can learn this from who he surrounds himself by. But I do feel like having those open conversations are great. I know on the weekend, my partner and I, well, I'd already seen it, but we watched it together. Brene Brown's special on Netflix, A Call to Courage, and it really opened up great conversations about our own inner child. So mine is the experience of growing up as a sensitive girl, but his experience as a man, and what it was like as a boy, and certain things, and the way that she talks about like vulnerability in men, not always something that's been celebrated, whereas it's a really big power to be courageous enough to be vulnerable, courageous enough to share our emotions. So there's so many different resources that I recommend that as a parent you start to surround yourself with, so that you start to get more comfortable having these open, expressive conversations with your children. And also tuning into what is the struggle that your child is having, so that you can get the appropriate resource and support for your child. And if the things that we talked about didn't feel like they were appropriate for your son or your child, thank you for asking that question. And I want to make sure that you get directed to what will. So what is the challenge that's showing up for your son in particular? Is it because of socialization and the influences around him? Could there be a more positive role model who can model what it's like to be strong and sensitive? What it's like to feel all your emotions and know they're all welcome and accepted? Or what are the particular struggles or challenges that your particular son is having? Because it might be the individual that we're looking at within the whole, and that's important to look at to know exactly what's going to be supportive. I also know just having like a male role model or a male therapist or coach or play-based therapist or healer is going to be supportive if it's something where your child is needing a little bit more support, and to have that safe space to learn these tools and these skills and the ability to be open to talking about things. And if your like husband or you as a dad doesn't feel safe or comfortable with that, I also recommend that you get support with that with someone, because that's going to help you to be able to learn that yourself, to decondition yourself to what society might have been teaching you growing up, to let yourself feel and heal certain things that you haven't been able to, so that your child can feel safe to do that with you and knows that they have that model. So that would be my long answer to that. But I want to find some books, so I will include some below that might be an area to dive deeper in that, to learn outside of what we can give here. So even me, like, I'm reading a book right now. That's all. It's about like girls can be mean. I think that's what it's called. But I'm going to show that in the resources too. And it's really about how like social challenges can happen amidst girls when they're little, but because they're not seen as like aggressive and outwardly the same way as some boys' struggles are, it's not seen as bullying. And I just want to touch on that, because there can be so many things that are either like really obvious, not so obvious, that all need a different lens to look at it and be like, how do we get to what's going on underneath and support? But at anything going on, learning how to feel, express, name emotions, and find out the need underneath them is going to be helpful regardless of the situation, regardless of if you have a daughter or if you have a son, or if your child doesn't identify as either, okay? As either a girl or a boy. And we always want you to be guided to the support that's going to allow you to feel safe, loved on, and never judged. Always compassionate and accepting. So that's the important thing. So if you can hold that space for your child, no matter what, that's going to be supportive and an open space to navigate these conversations and to navigate big emotions, which we want to feel as safe and seen and loved and accepted as possible. So the next question is confidence. And I love this question. It was how to help my highly sensitive 10-year-old feel confident, especially at school with friends, and reduce her anxiety. And then I wrote something. Okay, your book recommendation, which I would recommend the Girls Can Be Mean book on that too, because if it's your daughter who's 10, that's a very important time for building up that sense of self, confidence, and learning that being her is lovable, okay, and she's worthy just as she is. So there's tons of books that I'm sure you could read on that. But I also want to remind you, Tara Filteau and Ashley Loeid on day one, their interviews were really great for this, and they had a lot of great tips there. But both of them kind of started with start with you as the parent. So I want to be honest here. Sometimes our children come in and they're like, hey, mom, hey, dad, hey, parent, look at this. Did you struggle with this as a child? I'm going to come in and have very similar challenges so that you get to heal and I get to heal. Because children are a mirror, children are awakeners, children want us to heal our stuff. And it can be really hard to support your child in something that you struggled with yourself. So if that's you, I would say see what support you can get, whether it's working with someone, whether it's reading that next book that's going to have resources and tools and frameworks to be able to apply it to your inner child to then support your child. That's always a great place to be. So for this person, I want you to take a moment to reflect, really tap into your heart, and your body will know the answer to this. When you were 10, did you feel confident? Did you struggle to feel confident? Did you struggle? Did you maybe, like Ashley was talking about, were you focused on fitting in rather than belonging and being who you are? Because if that's true, there's a healing opportunity for you, but there's also a chance to tune in to your inner child and what she needed. Your child might not need what you needed because we don't want to project that onto them, but that might actually give you a deeper well of compassion and presence to be with your child's experience without bringing up your own fears that you had about your childhood. So start there, because we always want to get to a root and a healing opportunity that your child might be showing you. But one of the things that Tara said, which I think is really important, is are you modeling courage to your child? Because sometimes we think that confidence, like no one's born confident. We don't just become confident just because we are. It's not something we can like get like that. Confidence comes from taking action and then having an experience and then doing it again and then doing it again. And then we become more confident. It's like a state of being that we keep practicing the more and more we do something that might feel scary that's outside of our comfort zone. And I was going to print this out, but I didn't. So this is something that's actually in my upcoming book, Eat, Play, Love, a recipe for rewiring your brain, finding your fun, and rediscovering you again. But it's also the model I use in coaching. And this idea is there's like 3 circles, okay? So first circle, it's your comfort zone. You're not doing anything scary. You're not doing anything that might take you out of what's cozy, what's safe, what's not kind of risking exposure to what other people might think, or you doing something that takes courage. So that's your comfort zone. And if your child's not feeling confident, they might be really wanting to stay in that comfort zone because it feels safer. And we totally understand that. We've all been there. Now, what's next in the circle? So that's the smaller one, the next one. It's called the zone of proximal development. I'm going to explain what that means after. I learned about that and took that into consideration with my model of doing things after being in teachers college, because I'm a certified elementary school teacher alongside being a master coach. So I really understand this lens. Now, the bigger circle that we don't want to go in is the danger zone. That's when your nervous system gets too reactive, or that's when challenges or triggers happen really easily all the time. We don't want to set your child up to do something that is actually going to bring like a big dip in their confidence. But we do want to set your child up to start putting themselves out there and to start navigating new things, to start learning that they get to feel confident. I know a coach, I think it's Shanda Sumter, who has supported me, and I've learned a lot of like good nuggets from her. But one is, she said, like, competence creates confidence. So the more you put yourself out there, the more actions you take, then you actually become more confident. So I recommend doing like You can create, whether it's like a tree or a step ladder, but some sort of visual that means something to you and your child. One for you, one for your child. And you do this as a family. And when I coach parents, I work with this with them so that they can support their child. But it has to start with them, because if your child sees you living in your comfort zone, it's going to be a lot harder for them to do things that might be scary. They see you being like, wow, and this is what Tara talked about in an interview. Wow, I was really scared to go to that I was really scared to try a new job or to try a new exercise class or to go to that group of women and spend time with them doing something new and meeting new people. But I put myself out there and I did one thing. I took the step. And wow, I ended up learning that it was really fun and that I made a lot of new connections, or that, you know what, I was much happier in this new job than I was doing the thing that was cozy, comfortable, but didn't really bring me joy. These are just examples. If you are able to model it and have these conversations about it, your child starts to pick up that, wow, my parent feels proud of themselves, even if it's scary and even if like it doesn't always go well, because that's the thing. We want to let them know mistakes are okay, flops are okay, feeling a little embarrassed or nervous is totally okay, but we try it anyways. Not when it's so big that it's the danger zone, but when we can do it in little bits over time that allow us to feel safer, feel more confident, be more in our body every time. So this is a bigger process that actually, why I call the zone of proximal development is, it's what you can do with support. So that's normally when we call in someone, a mentor, a coach, a play-based healer, someone who can help your child with this so that they can expand their zone of what's currently possible. Because comfort zone is what they can do on their own. The next is what they can do with support, which allows them to dive deeper into things that would be in the danger zone while feeling safe. It's almost like going swimming but having a life jacket on, because then you actually let yourself get comfortable with going to the deep end, but you know you've got a life jacket on and you know you've got a swim teacher helping you the whole way. It's funny, I was actually a swim teacher when I was a teenager. But my mom really pushed me at times to go into things that I wouldn't have done had I not had her reminder that it might be something that I love. And it took courage to do those things, because at first I didn't want to. And I think it's important to let your child have a voice to share the things that they are scared of, why they're scared of them, and then also what's beyond the fear that they actually want to do. Because when they do it more and more, they'll become more confident. And I know personally, teaching swimming lessons and being a lifeguard and doing all those things, I was really confident at it after, because it was something that I loved and I was passionate about it. And I loved supporting kiddos. And every time I showed up and did it, it's like that confidence became embodied in me. And that's what we want. We want to help your child keep doing things at their own pace and allow themselves to feel embodied in it. So embodied is really about the body. And when we have a trigger, it's like we get out of our body, or our body feels like an unsafe space. And the idea of having support and continually trying something new that might be scary is to actually let your body find safety amidst the new things, and also be confident over time. So don't expect confidence to come overnight, but start to dissect and understand, what are your daughter's fears? Why is she not feeling confident? And how does she want to feel moving forward? And what activities does she want to do that she might currently not feel safe or feel safe to be herself in, so that she can? But I would say either you as a parent working with a coach to help support her through this process and to help model this yourself. Great step number one. And also having your child have some play-based support might be a really safe space, to have a safe space where they feel seen, heard, and they know that they can be themselves and not care what other people think, because that's sometimes a thing with sensitive children, which I think the books that I'm going to recommend, or booking in a connection session with me, is a great next step. Or you can come live on the coaching call so that we can really support you a little bit further, get you set up with what you need. But hopefully this answer really helped there. Reducing the anxiety. She's going to need some practices to be in her body. Even that hand on heart breath thing is helpful. But I'd say come to the call or book a connection session with me, and we can dive into that deeper so that it's particular to your daughter. Because it's more than just a one and done thing. And then last question, I am going to dive into deeper next time.